Good morning and welcome to All Souls Unitarian Universalist Church. I'm really happy to see everybody this morning for a really special service. I'm Rhonda Johnson. My pronouns are she and her. And today's service will be filled with wonderful people who have all agreed to share what they would do with their one wild and precious life. In order of appearance and of age, first we'll have Quinn and Addy Dewell, then Dylan Southard, Aidan Helvey, Jen Keating, Karl Pilato, Judy Rose, Andy Walker, Jay Hatfield, maybe, I don't know where Jay is, Larry Sargent, and standing in for Bev Johnson, who is not feeling well today, will be Ruby Doyle. So before they all speak, a little bit later, Justin will read the entire Mary Oliver poem to you, and I hope you'll be thinking as well about what you would do with your one wild and perfect life.
Yes, welcome to all of you, including those on Zoom. So if you turn around and wave at Zoom, yay, Zoom. So when you hear the word poetry, what comes to mind? For many, that notion elicits groans of painful memories. From English classes where well-intentioned teachers or professors tried too hard to impose a sense of meaning. Now, of course, I believe that we also strive to construct meaning in many different ways, but this typically doesn't work when it's imposed by somebody. No, the world must be experienced for us to create that meaning. One of the beautiful aspects of poetry is that it does not impose. It doesn't tell us what to think. It allows, it invites, it holds space for us to craft meaning. If you have a favorite poem, reflect on the why of that matter. Why is it your favorite? Maybe you can't think of one. Or maybe you have one of those visceral negative reactions to the whole concept. So let me ask, how many of you have a favorite song? Of course, that's poetry set to music. How about a favorite movie? There's lots of storytelling there with plenty of poetry. What about a favorite work of art? Isn't that a form of visual poetry? Do you enjoy being in nature? Perhaps that's experiential poetry. Well, if so many facets of our existence are poetic, let's try this on for size. As Ani DeFranco says, us people are just poems. We're 90% metaphor with a leanness of meaning approaching hyper-distillation, and I won't go on, you don't want to hear me sing. If that's the case, though, that we too are poems, then poetry speaks to us because it speaks our language. It gets us, even when we don't get it. And then, look at how much of that's being removed from our curricula, or maybe with other things added if you're in Oklahoma. And think about how that affects us. Jeanette Winterson writes, when people say that poetry is a luxury or an option, or for the educated middle classes, or that it shouldn't be read in school because it's irrelevant, or any of the strange and stupid things that are said about poetry and its place in our lives, I suspect that the people doing the saying have had things pretty easy. A tough life needs a tough language, and that's what poetry is. She goes on to say, it isn't a hiding place, it is a finding place. May this be a finding place for you, especially today. So in just a few minutes, we're going to hear from some current members of the congregation, but let's take a moment to honor the ancestors of this church, the people who first came together to create a home for liberal religion here in Colorado Springs, who worked to raise money for a building, who sat in committee meetings and created bylaws. Yeah, I wouldn't like that either. Who chopped and marinated and baked for potlucks, who painted and waited and pounded nails and washed countless dishes, who gathered to worship, to learn, to grieve, to heal, to serve, to build justice, to transform their lives and this world. We are the recipients of an incredible gift and a beautiful vision. Let us do our part to keep this congregation strong, vital, and thriving for the generations to come. The morning offering will now be gratefully received. The options for giving are on the title slide on the screens behind me. They're also being posted in the chat on Zoom. Before I read the actual poem, please take a few deep, slow breaths. Nice, long, slow exhales. And then if you're comfortable, close your eyes or allow your vision to soften. Maybe taking in the stained glass. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean, the one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?
We'll begin with Quinn and Addy.
I want to make forts. I want to play outside a lot. I want to learn how to read books really well. When I grow up, I want to be a scientist and learn about dinosaurs. I want to work in a dinosaur and water animals, and I want to learn how to ride my bike really well without training wheels.
With my one life, I plan to make mistakes and take my opportunity and my mistakes and all of the failures that come with living and use them to grow as a person, to help grow my community, to help build a life worth living for me, anyone after me, and those that are still living before me. Thank you.
Let's give it up for my man, Dylan. Let's give it up for all our other awesome speakers.
With my one wild and precious life, I just hope to live it. I mean, that's kind of vague and cryptic, but that's kind of all we're here meant to do. That's what we're here to do. It's like there's nothing past surviving that any of us are truly meant for. That's all on us. We create our own meaning. we do the best we can. So if anyone's out there like struggling, thinking that they're not at the right place, there is no right place. You figure that out. So I plan to do the best I can.
Man, you guys are tall. Jeez. Sorry. Hi, my name is Jen Keating. My pronouns are she, hers. For this talk, I could have taken, what do you plan to do with your life, to literally mean, what do you want to be when you grow up? Which, honestly, is a hilarious question to ask anyone familiar with my resume. Furthermore, I don't think Mary Oliver is actually asking us in any sort of backhanded way to follow your passion, a statement which, by the way, I detest, as following your passion is a luxury afforded to those of a certain social class unburdened by where their next meal is coming from. No, to me, the question behind the question is really, what does it mean to be alive? Generations of poets, philosophers, and theologians have tried to answer this in a language we can all understand. The rapture of being alive, as Joseph Campbell put it, is sublime and deeply personal. We know it when we see it, but it's hard to name. It's also something I don't think we can truly touch until we've made space for it. Sometimes life does that for us in moments of profound loss. Death, divorce, diagnosis of a chronic illness, these disrupt our lives at a fundamental level. The vacuum of grief leaves an uncomfortable silence, calling us to slow down and listen. But it doesn't have to take a major life event to start listening. In fact, monasteries are built for that exact reason. In the service of deep listening, monks will voluntarily take a vow of silence. Now, I'm not saying we should all renounce our earthly lives and go the way of St. Francis, but the larger point is we are all capable of creating that space within ourselves. Life is only able to grow if we give it room to breathe. There's a reason we have so many parables about empty cups. It's impossible to know yourself when you're unconsciously drowning that cup in fear and lies. There's a voice underneath it all that yearns to sink with you. But to hear it, we must be brave enough to clear the channel. What happens next is something Thomas Merton captures perfectly when he says, "A door opens in the center of our being, and we seem to fall through it into immense depths. All eternity seems to have become ours in this one placid and breathless contact." That, my friends, is the spaciousness that I wish to occupy. That place where the river meets the ocean, where the wild and precious self can be free. Let us go, in the words of Rilke, to the limits of our longing.
My name is Karl Pilato. Pronouns are he, him. My lifelong commitment to making art is what fills my mind as I reflect on Mary Oliver's question. There are times when I'm out for a walk and notice incredible ephemeral beauty, like maple leaves suddenly turning wine red in early fall, or sparkling summer sunlight on countless textures of foliage. What to do with all this? I feel a calling to somehow reciprocate. I'm reminded of Reverend Ron's inspiring story about searching for how to be at home and receiving the profound, and as it turned out to him, obvious answer, give back. It is so important to give back to our human community with love, as well as in more tangible ways. But maybe making art is another way of giving back to the beauty and mystery of the world. As a teenager, at the two-week-long arts camp that I attended every summer between years of high school, I remember looking up at the stars as I walked back to the dorms with my fellow campers after watching an evening dance performance. Many of my friends were very moved by the performance, and my mind went simultaneously to the vastness of the stars and the practice of making art. It came to me in that moment that meaning in this life can never be wholly known by the intellect. Instead, meaning can be experienced through the arts. Later, in a lonely period in my late 20s, living in New York City, I came across these lines by Rilke. And if the earthly no longer knows your name, whisper to the silent earth, I'm flowing. To the flashing waters say, I am. With aching recognition, I saw that my marks of paint and charcoal moving rhythmically across canvas and paper were my way of flowing and saying, I am. My practice of playing with color to generate a feeling of light and space was my effort to be at home in the universe. As I've gotten older, I've realized more and more how making art is not really a complete spiritual practice, which is part of why I'm here. But for me, it does seem to be essential. I am so lucky to be able to continue to make it central in my life. I will never be able to adequately respond to the beauty of nature, but it is the practice that matters.
Hi, my name is Judy Rose. My pronouns are she, hers. I want to give a shout out to my mom on Zoom. She couldn't be here today, and my sister Marion. So what is it I plan to do with my one wild and precious life? While contemplating this question, I began thinking about my life, recalling some harder times and years, some regrets, some I wish I would haves. Growing up, my mom used to tell me, your life is a gift from God, and what you do with your life is your gift to God. So I paused, and instead of focusing on my past, I shifted to today, where my feet are standing. Much like the grasshopper, I am just one of many beings in this vast universe of wonder. I doubt the grasshoppers, whose average lifespan is about a year, think about what happened yesterday or last week. My greatest desire is to live my one wild and precious life to the fullest each day. What does this look like? For me, I know that helping and advocating for others who cannot do so for themselves has been a lifelong passion. My life work has been helping people of all ages with disabilities. And in recent years, I started volunteering at the local zoo, educating the public about conservation and animal habitats. Service of any kind gives my heart and life meaning, for it is in serving others that I form the loving connections I yearn for. As long as I am able, I plan to continue my life work and service. I'll continue to work toward accomplishing my plans and goals, remembering that my life is just a vapor when I consider the span of the cosmos. I will continue to live and breathe and do the things I love, to cherish relationships and bonds with others. I will dance and laugh and smile and sing and give hugs and kisses to those dearest in my life. I will cry and experience sorrow as well. I will struggle, as we all do it at times. And before I sleep tonight, I will look back on this one day and express gratitude for it all. I will dwell where I am seen, loved, and celebrated. This gathering is one such place. I'll share an anonymous quote from one of my favorite books called Courage to Change. Today I will seek to be an instrument of the peace of God. I know that it is the most loving and generous commitment I can possibly make to myself and the world. And one more quote from novelist John Gardner. When people are serving, life is no longer meaningless. Thank you.
No, I don't need to stand on the thing. I am short, but I'm not that short. My name is Andy Walker. My pronouns are he, him. And when I thought about this question, what came to mind is something that is one of my life's philosophies that I have expressed here before and probably will do so again. You're only young once, but you can be immature forever. It makes me think of my childhood and past years, and having recently revisited my home in Indiana, and in fact, I went past my 2 childhood homes. It made me think of something that my mother used to tell me every day, as well as my brothers as we're heading off to school. Have a good day and do good work. And I think this is really important because it's something that we should all be doing. We should be trying to make the best of every day and at the same time be doing good in the world. When I was young, I got asked that awful question, what do you want to be when you grow up? So far, I have failed to grow up. But my usual answer when I was a kid, and this is a terrible thing to ask a 6-year-old, but I was like, I want to be a traveler. I want to travel the world. I want to go all over the place. Later on, I realized that wasn't very practical, so I did other things. But my trip to Indiana that I took week before last reminded me that I do have a wanderlust. So what do I want to do with my one wild and precious life? I want to travel the world, have a good day, and do good work. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Larry Sargent, a fairly new member of this congregation. One of these folks that have migrated from High Plains. Earlier, I heard the question, like, what am I going to do when I grow up? Well, in my age, at almost 83, what am I going to do when I get old? And so thinking about what I'm going to do when I'm old, because I don't feel old. And as my friend Phyllis keeps telling me, well, the reason you feel good and you're healthy is because you're lucky. And I think some proof of that at 83, I have hair. About 25 years ago, a church friend at High Plains shared an observation that I appeared to be very goal-oriented. I was not self-aware enough at that time to draw that same kind of conclusion, but today I think that's probably right. Another friend later also said that I was analytical. I never analyzed that. So at nearly age 83, I have goals. 3 basic goals are 1, to stay capable, 2, to keep learning, and 3, to be positive in my later years. On the staying capable, that means doing the work of trying to stay healthy and be independent. That also means to try to exercise every day, to be around other people, go to church, and then maintain a can-do attitude. I have a very specific target in this category, and that target is to be at my grandchildren's high school graduation in June of 2034. Keep learning is my next goal. Obviously reading, I've taken online classes, mostly through the Great Courses system, and because I never took much science classes, I've been taking a whole slew of science classes in my later years. I've also been working on learning Spanish. And this month I'm going to a Spanish language camp in Nicaragua with my grandkids. And then my travel partner and I will be traveling to the Baltic to tour Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland. And we've also put money down on a trip to Vietnam. So number 3, probably the most important one, is to be positive in my later years. And that means holding on to optimism, being careful and generous with my time and assets, being forgiving, being grateful, trying new things, and always looking for fun.
I'm Ruby Doyle. I'm reading a poem written by Beverly Johnson. I will take soft steps on the earth, breathe the scent of humanity, take care of myself, sing songs in the morning, hope for another day.
And this week, I wrote a tiny little poem the day after the SCOTUS decision about just where I needed my heart to be, and Justin asked if I would read it to you today. As we are working to meet the challenges of our days and months. Meanwhile, the flowers go on blooming, and the bees go on burying their heads in the sultry sweetness, gorging. Meanwhile, the dogs go on playing in the sun, who still beams down her glaring gaze that gave the Holy Spirit its identity. Meanwhile, we still have giant hearts that we can engage to love those right in front of us, and a soulful mind that can reason enough to hold the feet of the agents of hell to the fire. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Reverend Julia McKay. My pronouns are she, they.